self-knowledge through Karma Yoga. The goal of a spiritual practice is self-knowledge, which is also known as realization of God. Atma Jnana, Brahma Jnana, the same thing. And we know that there are at least 4 major paths for realization of God. Bhakti or devotion, in which one prays to God, tries to be near to God, comes to church and worships. That is the path of Bhakti Yoga. Another is the path of meditation, also called Raja Yoga, when one sits quiet, tries to control the mind and calm it. And in that state of complete peaceful mind, you have the vision of reality. That also is a path. Another is the path of self-inquiry. One doesn't seek for meditation, or one need not do worship or prayer to God. One just tries to think of what is the reality. Everything he finds in the world is unreal because it changes. Something unchanging, something remaining ever same. Is there something? So he negates everything, or she negates everything that is changing, and deep inquires into the nature of God or nature of the self. That is called a path of inquiry, or the Jnana Yoga. And today's topic is about Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is so much important for us because most of our waking time is spent in action, in work, whether in office or at home. So, if all this time of work is made conducive to our spiritual practice, at least helpful to our spiritual practice, then only we can think of attaining the goal. We sit for meditation hardly 1 hour, or maximum 2 hours, most of us. And prayer, coming to the shrine or little praying, hardly 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. And self-inquiry is seldom done. Sometimes it comes. Very rarely we inquire what is the self. We always are involved in the world. We think ourselves as the body and mind, and everyone else has the body and mind. Where is that inquiry? Who that person is? Who am I? There is no question. Seldom we ask the question, who am I? But most of the time we're acting, working. So that hours of our work, if we could somehow make it in a way conducive to our spiritual practice and focus to our goal of God realization or self-realization, whatever you say, or self-improvement, whatever you say, then the progress will be faster. All these 4 yogas need to be practiced in our daily life. Though each one of these is capable to reach us to the goal, but if practiced together, it is easier because we have all these 4 faculties of love, of meditation or deep thinking, and inquiring into the thing, and also acting, working, being active. Self-realization is knowledge of one all-pervading self. In other words, total absorption in God, consciousness. And that total absorption in God consciousness is the culmination of all yogas. Now what is that self? That is your question. There is a story of Indra and Virochana in the Upanishads. Indra and Virochana, one is the king of, or the head of Devas, Virochana is the head of Asuras. They both went to Brahma to know about the self. They were interested in understanding what the self is, because they knew that to know the self is the ultimate knowledge. Without knowing the self, who am I? You are ignorant. You may know everything in the world, but unless you know who you are ignorant. So they both went there, and Brahma said, you practice meditation for 104 years. So they went and practiced meditation, both of them, Ashura and Indra. And after that, they came to Brahma, and Brahma said, yes, good, you have practiced. Go and see in the pool of water. What you see is yourself. Said that both of them came and saw in the pool of water. It was the reflection of their self. Themselves they could see. So Virochana said, oh, that means this body is the self. Body is the self. Brahma told that whatever you see in the reflection, that is the self. And he was very happy and went away. And he preached to his people that, you see, Brahma has told me, I meditated for 104 years, and Brahma told me, whatever you see, that body is the real self. So those who consider body as the self and decorate, feed, take all the care of the body as the self, they don't accept any other thing, they don't have any inkling that there is something else than the body as the self, they are the children of Virochana. Asura. And what did Indra do? Indra also saw the image. And then he thought, yes, Brahma told that what you see the reflection and that is the self. But how can this body be the self? Self has to be something unchanging. It has to be a source of joy. It has to be eternal. Body changes, it grows, it dies, it degenerates, it becomes old. This cannot be self. So he applied his mind, because he had heard something about the self, and went back to Brahma and said, Lord, I saw the reflection of body in the water, but how can that be the self? Body changes. It is degenerates, it is born and it dies, it is not eternal, it cannot be self. Please teach me about the self. So Brahma said, go and meditate again 104 years. So Indra again went back and meditated. And deep in meditation, then he realized that self is something that consciousness within and beyond this body and mind. There is the entity, which is the real person, which does not change, does not die, was never born, will never be dead. That entity is real I. So he could realize that there is the self beyond body and mind. And that he taught to his people. Hey, this body is not the self. Self is beyond the body and mind. And those are gods. Those are gods who know that self or Atman is body, not the self or Atman. Now those who know that this self is unaffected by the world because it is beyond the worldly appearance. What appears is not the self. They are the persons of realization, the persons of self-knowledge. Their attitude, their behavior, their actions, everything is so different. They are not disturbed by the world. What type of strength they have? You know how holy persons are firm in conviction, and small things don't disturb them. Whether one praises or blames, whether one honors or dishonors, that's what you read in the Gita. Sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayo. In the pleasure and pain, in loss or in gain, we can make all these as equal, become equal in these afflictions or these changes. He is the man of knowledge or devotee. So there is another story of Shuka and Yajnavalkya. Shukadeva was a son of Vedavyasa, the great rishi who compiled the Vedas into and also made a philosophy out of Veda called Vedanta philosophy. He is ascribed to be the composer of Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra, and also many Puranas like Bhagavata. He is supposed to have composed the Bhagavata Purana. So Vedavyasa had a son, Shukadeva, Shuka. He was a born sage. From his very birth, he was a person of knowledge. He knew what the self is. He had self-knowledge from very birth. So when he grew up, he wanted to know about karma yoga. What is the path of karma? Though he was a jnani, but he was interested to know about the karma. So where to go? There was the greatest karma yogi at that time called Janaka. In the Gita also it comes. Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim asthito janakadaya. People like Janaka and others have attained perfection only through karma. Only through action done in a proper way, with proper attitude, they have attained karma. Karmanaiva, karmane eva hi samsiddhi. So he goes to Janaka. Now Janaka, he goes to the gate, main entrance of the kingdom of Janaka's palace. In the palace he was treated well, but Janaka doesn't come. The news was sent that Shuka has come. Shuka was respected as a man of knowledge all over the world, the known world that time. Janaka gets information, but he doesn't come. For 7 days, Shuka was at the gate of the palace. Cared by his Janaka's people, but ignored by Janaka himself. He was a man of knowledge. He was being tested. After that, he was taken after 7 days, he was taken to the inner court. Again there, nobody, Janaka doesn't come to meet him. He had to wait. To gain the knowledge, one has to go and reach a teacher's door, one has to wait, with patience. After 7 days, he was taken to the interior of the palace. He was served with wealth, riches, beautiful girls coming and serving. Now, the test of the knowledge of Janaka, knowledge of Shuka, whether he was a man of knowledge or not. Temptations. Shuka, with patience, again waited for 7 more days. And he was unaffected by all the honors shown to him, or was not dejected by the ignorance or the weight by the king Janaka, or the weight he had to be to meet Janaka. He was calm and peaceful, unaffected by the world. That is a taste of man of knowledge. It is said about Rama that when Rama was supposed to be coronated as a king next morning, so there was not that elation. He took it as a duty given by his father, a responsibility. But that very night something happened, and instead of getting kingdom, he was asked to go to the forest for 14 years. And what was the reaction of Rama? Sudden change of pole, from one pole to another pole. From becoming king to roam in the forest, a poor person. But Rama was unmoved, unchanged. Tulsidas writes very nicely prasannatam yana gata vishekata tatha namamlau vanavasa dukkhata. I bow down to Sri Rama, whose face was unchanged by the joy when he heard he was going to be king, and was unchanged. There was no sign of any sorrow when he had to go for forest. I bow down, and that made that face of Sri Rama be auspicious to all. That was the prayer of. That is the prayer of Tulsidas, and that is the sign of man of knowledge, self-knowledge. Regarding self-knowledge, the main concept of the self-realization or person of knowledge is that how to attain self-knowledge, one has to renounce the world, no connection with anything of the world, go to the forest, and there, either in the deep forest where there is no human being, no affectation from anyone of the world, meditate, or go into the deep cave to protect yourself from the rain and sun and wild animals, and go in deep contemplation. Then there you will realize the truth of the self. Self-knowledge will come only then. That is a common concept. Without having this knowledge, practicing the path of knowledge, you will not have self-realization. In Mohamudgara, it is said, Jnana vihine sarvam anena siddhir na bhavati janma shatena. Without the knowledge, you will not have the perfection. Without the path of knowledge, you will not have the perfection or ultimate self-knowledge. The path of knowledge is much eulogized, and that is our ordinary concept. But it is clearly said in the Gita, and it is in the Upanishads, that path of karma is equally conducive and equally powerful to give you self-knowledge. When Arjuna asked, which path is greater, path of a renouncing monk or a person doing karma yoga, active in the world? Sri Krishna said, Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karotiya sa sannyasi cha yogi cha. Who works in the world without attachment, he is the real sannyasi, he is a karma yogi, not one who renounces the activity of the world. He said, Sankhya yogo prithak bala pravadanti na pandita. Sankhya is the path of knowledge, and yoga is the path of karma yoga. So, those who say that path of knowledge and path of karma yoga or active life is different, they are children. They are not wise persons. So both are equal. And as I said, he said, there are the instances in Bhagavad Gita itself, he said, by karma alone one can realize the highest. Then he said to Arjuna, Arjuna, you don't need to renounce. Arjuna said, I want to renounce the world. This fighting for battle, for having this kingdom, I don't want this. I want to go to the forest and meditate and renounce everything. I don't want to have any connection. Sri Krishna explains this all about the karma yoga, and he says, Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Arjuna, try to be a yogi. Try to be actively working in the world without attachment. That is the path for you. And how to do this? Sri Krishna said, Mam anusmara yuddhacha, fight in the battle, but your mind keeping in me. Mam anusmara, remember me, remember God, and go on fighting. When you work in the world, don't forget God. Is it possible to remember God and work in the world? Sri Ram, that says, Mam anusmara, always remember me while doing everything in the world, while fighting in the battlefield or while doing everything in the world. Sri Ramakrishna says, yes, it is possible, and he gives a fantastic example. He says that as a person having toothache, pain in tooth, He doesn't stop from working. He works everything. He takes care of his children, goes to office, does everything. But all the time he's conscious of his pain in the tooth. It's always there. Like that should be your remembering God. Always the flow of God remembrance should be there, and you will be acting in the world. It is possible. Mam Anusmara Yuddhacha is possible. Not only Gita, it is said about the Karma Yoga. Even Sri Ramakrishna himself, he did Karma Yoga, serving poor, serving people. And he taught, when he was expounding, as many of you know, expounding the spiritual practices according to Vaishnava sect, that the spiritual practice consists of three major things according to Vaishnava: Name Ruchi, Jive Doya, Vaishnava Seva. Love for the name of God, one spiritual practice. Always remember the name of God, repeat the name of God mentally with love. One important spiritual practice. Then, Vaishnava Seva, serve the devotees of God. By serving them, your mind will be concentrated on God. It will be conducive to your spiritual practice. It will be helpful. And the third, Jive Daya, be compassionate to all creatures. So Sri Ramakrishna explained the first two, that how the name is non-different from the object name signifies. Ram, to say Ram is not different from the God Ram himself. And next he explained about the service to the devotees of God. Serving the holy man, we attain their qualities. When you serve a pure person, you come in contact, you absorb those qualities unknowingly. So you become purer. When the third thing was being explained, that compassion to the living creatures, then he became suddenly went in an ecstatic mood, and he says, what? You human being, you're like a worm, having compassion on the creatures who are created by God? What power do you have to have compassion? No, it should not be compassion. It is service to man as God. Shiva Jnane Jiva Seva. Know God to be present in the human being. See God in the human being and serve them. It is service to human beings, service to creatures. Jiva, not even human beings. Shiva Jnane Jiva Seva. All creatures, all animals, all living beings should be served, knowing them to be Shiva, God himself. Compassion is like I have something you don't have, I have compassion to you. Oh, you are poor fellow, please have this. I feel for you. Not that. Just serve them, worship them as God. Worship is the correct word. That's what Sri Ramakrishna said. And this is the Karma Yoga. Serving others as God. That is what Karma Yoga. That is what when Krishna says, Mam Anusmara Yuddhata, remember me. When you start remembering God all the time, you start seeing God everywhere. That is the psychology. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, hold on to God with one hand and work with another hand. That is, think of God. Swami Kripamayananda said, keep 3/4 of your mind on God and work. Give 1/4 of the mind for the work of the world. And with 1/4 of the mind given to the work of the world, you will work miraculously. Fantastic. If your rest of the mind is fixed on God. Actually, when we work, we don't give even 1/4. All our mind is dissipated here and there, and we try to work. A fraction of mind goes there. 1/4 of the mind keeping on the work is a big portion of the mind. And that will do a wonderful work. And if the rest of the mind is in God, who is all good, beauty, calmness, then that work, 1/4 of the mind, will be very strong, effective action it will produce. The goal, therefore, is a state of uninterrupted meditation on an unwavering awareness of the divine. That is the goal. Swami Adishwarananda writes, meditation is more than mere thinking about and imagining the object of meditation. It is an intense and uninterrupted feeling for the chosen ideal based on knowledge. As long as one is unable to feel, one thinks and reasons. The state of meditation cannot be reached unless the aspirant feels pure love and attachment for the object of meditation. Pure love merges into meditation, and meditation culminates in samadhi. Self-knowledge or God realization is the most concentrated form of love. So to do karma yoga, we need to have love in our heart for the chosen ideal. Without that, there will be no karma yoga. There has to be aspiration to attain that, to attain the culmination in the chosen ideal. Then the karma yoga is possible. Karma yoga's basis of karma yoga, how to have that, is the non-attachment in the practice of it. We say we are not attached. Karma yoga gives as a laboratory to us whether we are really practicing non-attachment. Unless we work in the field, we will feel we are great yogis. I am not attached to anything. I am not attached to family. I am not attached to my name and fame. But when you go down into the work, then we really realize how much unattached we are. Little something says, on my chair, some person sits on my chair, I become angry. How can he sit there? Little small actions. Someone touches your car, my car. Otherwise you feel, I don't own car. People say like that. We often say, we say that I don't do anything. I feel like people doing. I am a karma yogi. But when taste comes, when you start working. Thinking is one thing, and what reality happens is another. This working in the world, it gives us an opportunity to judge ourselves how much of non-attached work we are able to do. Very important. Swami Vivekananda said, if you really want to judge the character of a man, do not look at his great performances. Every fool can act as a hero at one time or another. Watch a man do his most common action. Those are indeed the things which will tell you the real character of a great man. The test of Karma Yogi is not the big actions, the small actions, how he does, the small interrelation things, how he manages that. In the practice of Karma Yoga, there are three things. First, for the beginners, it is an attempt to purify the mind through selfless activity. There is the living in the word of law, that you should work selflessly, you should not have the ego, you should not try to earn the praise for the work you have done, and there is an attempt for that. And to practice that, not to be affected by the praise or the blame by our work, we have to practice work and worship. Work, and then some things come, as I said, we are affected by the word, by saying, by our ego, we have ego. Then we worship, we come to God and we analyze ourselves, how many times I failed, and pray to God, Lord, make me perfectly detached, make me non-egoistic, make me prideless. We pray to God, we work and worship. That is the beginner. There we live a life of law. Our ego is yet unripe, green, sour. We want to ripen the ego. This first stage of the practice of work and worship is ripening the unripe ego, in the words of Sri Ramakrishna. During this practice, gradually a distaste for worldly enjoyment comes. We don't want anything to enjoy in the world. But that is not the stage of very high elevation. But that has to mature to transform to love for the spiritual ideal. Maybe I don't want that, but love for a spiritual ideal. That emotional attachment to the spiritual ideal, that has to come. That will gradually come with the ripening of the ego. Next stage is the aspirant matures, ego ripens, and he lives a life of love. First was the law, lives a life of law, what is said in the scripture, what you need to do, he was trying to do. Now next the love has started coming from the ideal. And he goes on working, but his mind is set. He now starts thinking of God. It is possible for him to Mamanusmara Yudhyacha, doing work and thinking on God. Often mind goes back to God, thinks of, and when he gets something, he is less reactive to the world. That is, he is maturing in Karma Yoga. Then the work, then he works at worship. Then he feels what I am working is the worship of God. The third step, still higher stage is when the whole work is transformed into worship. Work is worship. Whatever he works or she works is Karma Yoga, is worship to God. He doesn't have to think that what I am working is service to God. He doesn't have to think that there is Shiva in the person. He is already illumined to think, yes, what I am doing is serving God. So that is a very high stage of Karma Yoga. A Karma Yogi, having faith in God, looks upon God as the real doer of all actions. One is that. How can we practice Karma Yoga? One is to think that God is the doer. Sri Ramakrishna always emphasized, you are not the doer. Naham, naham, tuhu, tuhu. You, God alone is the doer of every action. I am not the doer. That way we can practice Karma Yoga. What about those who are non-dualist? They offer all the works in the fire of knowledge. What is said, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi Brahmagno Brahmanamtam. All actions are being offered in the fire of knowledge. The knowledge says we don't do any actions. The nature is doing action. The Gita, that famous verse, which says, Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manneta tattvavid. The knower of tattva, knower of reality says, I don't do any work. Then who does? Indriyani indriyarthesu vartanta iti dharyan. The eyes open and blink, the stomach digests, the hands and limbs work, mind thinks, brain activates. I don't do any work because I am separate from all these bodily parts and mind mental stuff. I am a witness. I am not an agent in the world. I just watch everything that is being worked through this body and through other bodies. I am unaffected. That is another way of doing Karma Yoga by persons who believe in formless aspect of God. But Karma Yoga always emphasizes that the contemplative life is counterpart of active life. Swami Vivekananda said about the ideal person that he will be as quiet and calm in the hustles and bustles of the streets of New York, and he will be very active mentally meditating in the forest. When he meditates, he actively thinks for the good of the world. Blessing is always there, prayer is always there. And when he is in New York street, going to Toronto streets, he is calm inside. Nothing does any affect him. He is driving the car, has to rush to the office. There is no road rage for him. He is never agitated. Little late for people you find. You are late by 2 seconds and they are honking behind in the red sign. They are always rushing. No patience. So there will be patience in a man of knowledge. Everything will be taken care of. Don't worry. Karma Yoga though is not easy. Sri Ramakrishna always said, Karma Yoga, if it is tried to be done without the help of Bhakti Yoga, it's very difficult. Just I want to do work for work's sake. I will do without attachment. It's not easy. The ego comes, attachment comes. Shambhu Malik was one of the caretakers of Sri Ramakrishna. He was a true devotee and a karma yogi. The divine association with Sri Ramakrishna opened up a new spiritual path in his life. With the grace and influence of Sri Ramakrishna, his faith reached the height of glorious fulfillment. Shambhu wanted to serve the people and the society through building charitable dispensaries and hospitals. He often pleaded with Sri Ramakrishna to bless him so that all his wealth and money would be put to the service of downtrodden and needy. Idea of social welfare had taken the hold of Shambhu's mind. However, Sri Ramakrishna did not want to keep his devotee at the plane of social service alone. He wanted Shambhu to realize the higher spiritual truths as well. Therefore, by way of mild rebuke, Sri Ramakrishna once said to him, "Suppose God appears before you, then will you ask him to build hospitals and dispensaries for you? Riches may be of great value for us, but to him, our Lord, all wealth is as useless as lumps of mud." Through Shambhu Charan Malik, Sri Ramakrishna now advises us all, don't go out of your way to look for such works. Undertake only those works that present themselves to you and are of pressing necessity, and those also in a spirit of detachment. Real aim in life is realization of God, or in other words, self-realization. Selfless work, though not an easy as it seems, is nevertheless a certain way for the realization of the self. From Yam's life, how Yam worked as Karma Yogi. Yam's diary is the honeycomb. Bees fly from flower to flower for nectar. They gather it and fill the honeycomb. People extract the honey and enjoy it. Yam used to run to the temple garden of Dakshineswar and to places in Calcutta to gather Ramakrishna honey, the master's immortal words. He gathered Ramakrishna honey over a period of 5 years, recorded it in the Gospel, and dispensed it himself for nearly 50 years. He strongly believed that anyone who imbibes these immortal words of the Master will be immortal. Once Yam told some devotees, "I don't claim any credit for it." You see the Karma Yoga. The Master's life was a glowing example of Jivan Mukti, Yam says, and Videha Mukti. We lived with him and witnessed those states. One cannot understand Vedanta only through reasoning. One needs experience. That depends on sadhana. Our doubts disappear when we see a person who is illumined and free. God descends as an avatar to manifest the true meaning of the scriptures and to correct their distorted interpretations. I am lucky because I associated with the Master over a period of 5 years, and I now understand a little. Just as by one clod of clay, all that is made of clay is known, the modification being only a name arising from speech, while the truth is that all is clay. This statement of Chandogya Upanishad is an example of Videha Mukti. In Swami Vivekananda's famous lecture, Work and Its Secret, he said, "Nature will compel you to give up. Why not give up voluntarily? The moment sacrifice becomes voluntary, it loses its sting. It is no longer a source of suffering. Suppose you are pickpocketed. Naturally you suffer. But if you pity somebody who is starving and give them money, then you are happy. Our reactions differ according to the nature of the sacrifice, whether it is involuntary or voluntary. Karma Yoga is a path of self-realization. Karma Yoga is serving the world, looking upon it as a manifestation of God. It is to serve with love and reverence. In Karma Yoga, every work is transformed into an act of worship. Needless to say, only advanced spiritual aspirants can perform Karma Yoga. Swami Vivekananda says that man will have seen the real motive of doing good to others because there is only one. It cannot be called egoistic because that would be differentiation. It is the only selflessness. It is the perception of the universal, not of the individual. Every case of love and sympathy is an assertion of this universal, not I, but thou. Help another because you are in him and he is in you, is the philosophical way of putting it. The real Vedantist alone will give up his life for a man without any compunction because he knows he will not die. As long as there is even an insect left in this world, he is living. As long as one mouth eats, he eats. So he goes on doing good to others and is never hindered by the modern ideas of caring for the body. From the follower of Virochana, he becomes descendant of Indra. Last. There are two ways of performing Karma Yoga in a detailed manner. The first method is described by Swami Vivekananda as work for work's sake, saying, I am only the witness, unaffected, untouched. All work is done only for work's sake, not out of any other consideration or hope. That is the process of the men of knowledge. The second method is suited to those with a devotional temperament. Here all actions are done for pleasing God. The results of all actions are offered to God. In fact, the devotee feels that every work is God's work, that he is only an instrument of God carrying out his orders. In his lectures on Karma Yoga, Swami Vivekananda says that both these methods help one in overcoming attachments and freeing oneself from the binding nature of karma. He says, for whatever good work we may do, let us not claim any praise or benefit. It is the Lord's. Give up the fruits unto him. Let us stand aside and think that we are only servants obeying the Lord, our Master, and that every impulse for action comes from him every moment. Whatever thou worshipest, whatever thou perceivest, whatever thou doest, give up all unto him and be at rest. Swamiji then describes the wonderful sacrifice of the little self, Atma Yajna. He says, let us be at peace, perfect peace with ourselves, and give up our whole body and mind and everything as an eternal sacrifice unto the Lord. Instead of sacrifice of pouring oblations into the fire, perform this one great sacrifice day and night, the sacrifice of your little self. In search of wealth in this world, thou, the Lord, art the only wealth I have found. I sacrifice myself unto thee. In search of someone to be loved, thou, O Lord, art the only one beloved I have found. I sacrifice myself unto thee. Let us repeat this day and night and say, nothing for me, no matter whether the thing is good, bad, or indifferent. I do not care for it. I sacrifice all unto thee, the final realization through Karma Yoga will be जो कुछ है सो तू ही है, तुझसे हमने दिल को लगाया, जो कुछ है सो तू ही है. Whatever is there, O Lord, from very earth to highest heaven, it is Thou, O Lord. The famous words of Jafar with Swami Vivekananda used to sing for Sri Ramakrishna, that it is God everywhere.